In the 1920s, people believed Miami was the fastest path to wealth in America. Fortunes appeared overnight, land prices exploded, and ambition seemed limitless. Then disaster struck and the dream began to unravel. By 1920, Miami was still a young city, but its future was already attracting national attention. Located along the shores of Biscayne Bay in southeastern Florida, the city possessed advantages that few American communities could match. Warm winters attracted wealthy visitors from northern states, while its location near the Caribbean gave it strategic value beyond tourism. What many saw as a tropical destination, ambitious investors saw as an opportunity to build an empire. The city entered the decade during a period of economic optimism. Across the United States, prosperity was rising after World War I. New industries expanded, consumer spending increased, and investors searched constantly for profitable opportunities. Miami became one of the biggest targets of that search. No individual played a larger role than Carl Fisher. Already famous as a businessman and developer, Fisher focused much of his attention on Miami Beach. Large sections of the barrier island remained underdeveloped, but Fisher envisioned luxury hotels, exclusive neighborhoods, and a destination capable of attracting wealthy Americans from across the country. His marketing campaigns were relentless. Newspaper advertisements presented Miami as a paradise where fortunes could be made and lifestyles transformed. Investors responded. Thousands arrived seeking opportunity. The city quickly became one of the hottest real estate markets in America. Throughout 1923 and 1924, property values climbed rapidly. Lots were bought and sold repeatedly before construction even began. Some investors never intended to build anything. Their goal was simple: buy today and sell tomorrow for a higher price. The more prices increased, the more people joined the frenzy. Greed became a powerful force. Developers announced ambitious projects across Miami, Miami Beach, and Coral Gables. George Merrick's vision for Coral Gables attracted buyers who believed South Florida represented the future of American growth. New roads, hotels, and residential developments appeared at a remarkable pace. For a brief moment, it seemed that Miami could do no wrong. Yet beneath the excitement, problems were emerging. Railroads struggled to deliver enough construction materials. Transportation networks became congested. Costs increased. Speculation pushed prices far beyond what many properties could realistically support. The boom depended on confidence. As long as buyers believed values would continue rising, the system worked. The moment that belief weakened, the risks became obvious. By late 1925, signs of trouble appeared. Sales slowed. Financing became more difficult. Some investors began questioning whether prices reflected reality. The atmosphere of easy wealth started fading. Then nature delivered a devastating blow. On September 18, 1926, the Great Miami Hurricane struck South Florida. Winds exceeding 140 miles per hour tore through neighborhoods, businesses, hotels, and infrastructure. Floodwaters swept across large sections of the region. Buildings collapsed. Boats were hurled ashore. Communications failed. The destruction shocked the nation. Images published in newspapers across America showed a city struggling to survive. The paradise that developers had spent years promoting suddenly looked vulnerable. Confidence evaporated. Investors disappeared. Projects stalled. The hurricane exposed weaknesses that had been hidden during the boom years. Property values fell. Financial losses mounted. Developers faced mounting pressure. Many dreams of instant wealth vanished almost overnight. Yet Miami refused to surrender. Business leaders worked to rebuild damaged areas. Construction resumed where possible. Tourism slowly returned. Residents remained determined to restore the city. But even as recovery efforts continued, a larger threat was developing elsewhere. Throughout the late 1920s, Stock market speculation intensified across the United States. Investors borrowed heavily and poured money into rising markets. Optimism seemed endless. Then, on October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday changed everything. The stock market crashed, panic spread through financial institutions, businesses failed, banks collapsed, millions of Americans lost jobs and savings. The Great Depression began. For Miami, the timing was disastrous. The city was still recovering from the collapse of the land boom and the destruction caused by the 1926 hurricane. Tourism declined. Construction slowed dramatically. Investment capital disappeared. Fear replaced ambition. Yet despite the hardship, Miami still possessed something valuable. Its climate remained attractive. Its position near the Caribbean remained strategic. Its connection to international trade routes remained intact. The boom was gone. The easy money had vanished. But beneath the economic wreckage, the foundations of a much larger future still existed. What nobody realized was that a global conflict approaching from overseas would soon transform Miami in ways that no developer, banker, or investor could have imagined. By the end of the Great Depression, Miami had already survived speculation, financial ruin, and a devastating hurricane. Many cities would have spent generations recovering. Instead, a global war was about to turn Miami's greatest advantage, its location, into a source of unprecedented power. As the 1930s drew to a close, tensions were rising across Europe and Asia. Governments expanded military preparations, and American planners began evaluating strategic locations throughout the country. Miami immediately stood out. Its warm climate allowed year-round training, its coastline provided access to the Atlantic Ocean, and its location near the Caribbean made it strategically important. What had once seemed like a distant tropical city suddenly became a valuable military asset. When the United States entered World War II on December 8, 1941, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, South Florida changed almost overnight. Military personnel arrived in large numbers. Airfields expanded. Training facilities appeared across the region. Hotels that once served tourists now housed servicemen preparing for war. Money flowed into the local economy. Construction projects multiplied. Businesses gained customers. Transportation networks expanded. For a city that had struggled through years of economic hardship, military spending created opportunities that few could have imagined during the darkest years of the Depression. Yet the most important consequence would emerge after the war ended. On September 2, 1945, World War II officially came to a close. Thousands of military personnel who had trained in South Florida remembered Miami's climate, beaches, and opportunities. Many returned with their families. Population growth accelerated, and developers once again began building homes, businesses, and communities. A new chapter had begun. The post-war years transformed Miami into one of the fastest-growing metropolitan areas in the United States. Roads expanded. Neighborhoods spread farther from the urban core. Tourism rebounded strongly as Americans enjoyed greater prosperity and increased leisure travel. At the same time, another revolution was reshaping the world. Commercial aviation was rapidly reducing distances between cities and nations. Airports became economic engines, connecting businesses, travelers, and investors across continents. Miami's location gave it a unique advantage. Situated closer to Latin America and the Caribbean than most major American cities, Miami naturally became a gateway for international travel. Airlines expanded routes throughout the region. Passenger traffic increased year after year. The city was evolving beyond tourism into something larger. Then a political earthquake changed everything. On January 1, 1959, Fidel Castro's revolutionary forces seized power in Cuba. The Cuban Revolution immediately transformed political and economic conditions throughout the region. For many Cubans, uncertainty about the future created a difficult choice. Thousands chose Miami. Because of its geographic proximity, Miami became the primary destination for Cuban migrants seeking safety, opportunity, and stability. The first major waves included business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs, and families who believed their departure might be temporary. It was not. As the years passed, migration continued. Entire communities took root in South Florida. Businesses opened. Restaurants appeared. Cultural institutions expanded. Spanish became increasingly common throughout the city. The transformation was visible everywhere. Little Havana emerged as the symbolic center of Cuban-American life. Along Cal Acho, new businesses and social networks flourished. What began as a refuge gradually evolved into one of the most influential communities in Miami. The economic impact was profound. Many immigrants arrived with experience in business, commerce, finance, and entrepreneurship. They built companies, created jobs, and established international relationships that connected Miami more deeply to Latin America. The city was no longer simply receiving immigrants. It was gaining access to networks of talent, capital, and opportunity. Banks quickly recognized the significance of these changes. During the 1960s and 1970s, financial institutions increasingly established operations in Miami. Wealthy individuals and companies throughout Latin America sought access to American financial services. Miami's bilingual workforce, geographic location, and cultural connections made it the ideal gateway. International money began flowing into the city. Banking expanded, trade increased, commercial relationships strengthened. Miami's influence reached far beyond Florida. Then another dramatic migration wave arrived. On April 20, 1980, the Mariel Boatlift began. Over the following months, approximately 125,000 Cubans departed from the port of Mariel and arrived in Florida. The sudden influx generated national attention and intense debate. Some feared economic disruption and social instability. Others saw an opportunity to strengthen communities already established in South Florida. Miami once again adapted. Housing, employment, and public services faced pressure, but the city continued growing. New arrivals joined an economy that was becoming increasingly international. Yet another force was simultaneously reshaping Miami's image. During the late 1970s and throughout much of the 1980s, cocaine trafficking expanded dramatically. Criminal organizations exploited Miami's location and transportation connections. Violence increased. Headlines across the country portrayed the city as a battleground for drug-related crime. The reputation was damaging. For many Americans, Miami became associated with danger, corruption, and organized crime. But beneath the headlines, a different story was unfolding. International trade continued growing. Miami International Airport expanded passenger and cargo operations. PortMiami strengthened its role as a major shipping and cruise hub. Financial institutions kept arriving. Investment continued flowing into the region. The city's foundations were becoming stronger, not weaker. By the end of the 20th century, Miami had transformed into a major center of banking, trade, immigration, tourism, and transportation. It was no longer merely a Florida city. It was becoming a gateway connecting the United States to Latin America and the wider world. And in the 21st century, that gateway would attract unprecedented wealth, global investment, and international influence. By the beginning of the 21st century, Miami had already reinvented itself multiple times. It had survived hurricanes, economic collapse, migration waves, and crime crises. But the next transformation would be its most dramatic. Global money was coming, and it would change the city's skyline, economy, and future forever. As the new century began in 2000, Miami occupied a unique position in the global economy. Few American cities possessed such strong connections to Latin America, the Caribbean, and international trade networks. Miami International Airport was handling millions of passengers annually, while PortMiami continued strengthening its position as one of the most important cargo and cruise ports in the Western Hemisphere. Those connections attracted something every city competes for: capital. Throughout the early 2000s, developers launched ambitious projects across downtown Miami, Brickell, and the waterfront districts surrounding Biscayne Bay. Glass towers rose into the skyline. Luxury condominiums promised ocean views, international prestige, and access to one of the fastest-growing urban centers in America. Foreign investors became a powerful force behind the boom. Wealthy buyers from Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, and Europe increasingly viewed Miami real estate as more than property. It became a financial safe haven. Political instability and economic uncertainty in other regions encouraged investors to place money in South Florida. As billions of dollars flowed into the market, Miami entered another period of extraordinary growth. Brickell transformed into a modern financial district filled with luxury residences, corporate offices, hotels, and international businesses. New construction projects appeared almost everywhere. Developers competed to build taller towers and more exclusive properties. The momentum seemed unstoppable. Then came 2008. The global financial crisis sent shockwaves through economies around the world. Credit markets tightened, real estate values fell, construction slowed, investors became cautious. Suddenly, questions emerged about whether Miami's rapid growth had created another speculative bubble. For some observers, memories of the 1920s returned. Had Miami once again become a victim of excessive optimism? Yet this time the city possessed advantages that did not exist during earlier booms. Tourism remained strong. International banking continued expanding. Trade through PortMiami remained active. Miami International Airport continued connecting businesses and travelers across continents. The city absorbed the shock and adapted. By 2012, recovery was clearly underway. Construction cranes returned to the skyline. New developments attracted global attention. International investors continued purchasing property. Luxury brands opened locations. The city was evolving into a destination not only for tourists, but also for entrepreneurs, executives, and investors. Another opportunity soon emerged. During the late 2010s, technology companies and startup founders began paying closer attention to Miami. The city offered international connectivity, favorable business conditions, and an attractive lifestyle. Venture capital investment increased. New businesses appeared across the metropolitan area. Then a major shift accelerated the trend. In 2020, remote work transformed how many professionals and companies viewed geography. People no longer needed to live near traditional business centers to remain productive. Miami became one of the biggest beneficiaries of this change. Executives relocated, entrepreneurs arrived, investments surged. High-income residents from other parts of the United States moved to South Florida in growing numbers. The economic impact was immediate. Demand for housing increased sharply. Property values climbed. Luxury developments attracted worldwide attention. Restaurants, entertainment venues, and cultural institutions expanded. Miami's reputation as a global city strengthened further. Yet success created new challenges. Housing affordability became a major concern. Rising rents and home prices placed pressure on many residents. Workers essential to the local economy found it increasingly difficult to live near the communities they served. At the same time, climate concerns became impossible to ignore. Miami's greatest strength had always been its location, but that same geography also created vulnerability. Rising sea levels, flooding risks, and stronger storms forced policymakers, engineers, and investors to think differently about the future. Major infrastructure projects were launched. Resilience programs expanded. Billions of dollars were directed toward protecting neighborhoods and strengthening long-term sustainability. The stakes were enormous. By 2024, Miami had firmly established itself as one of the most internationally connected cities in North America. Global corporations operated regional headquarters there. Financial institutions managed vast amounts of capital. PortMiami and Miami International Airport continued linking the city to markets around the world. By 2025, investment remained strong despite growing competition from other global cities. Wealth continued flowing into luxury developments, financial services, technology ventures, and tourism infrastructure. Then came 2026. The transformation was undeniable. The city that once relied heavily on seasonal tourism had become a global gateway connecting finance, trade, aviation, shipping, technology, culture, and international business. Its skyline reflected decades of ambition. Its population reflected generations of migration. Its economy reflected connections stretching across continents. Miami's rise was never guaranteed. It survived the collapse of the land boom. It rebuilt after devastating hurricanes. It adapted to migration waves that reshaped its identity. It overcame periods of crime, recession, and uncertainty. Each crisis forced reinvention. Each opportunity attracted new ambition. Each generation added another layer to the city's story. Today, Miami stands as one of the most important gateways between North America, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the global economy. Yet the same question that has followed the city for more than a century still remains unanswered. Can Miami continue defying the odds, or will the challenges of the future become the greatest test in its remarkable rise?